What's going on, everyone? This is Vicente.
And this is Izzy.
And welcome to our Scream review, and just the first of many reviews when it's coming to the Scream franchise. Now, earlier in the year, we did a ranking of all the Scream movies, and we did a Scream 6 review. And what better way to end Season 1 with covering the entire Scream franchise, starting with the first Scream movie. Now, if you've been following our podcast channel for a while, you know how much Scream just means to us.
Yeah, Scream has been a franchise, was like one of the first franchises that we watched solely together and like connected with, and it's probably one of my favorite films till the end of my days.
And it's one of those franchises too where there's not a bad movie. Sure, like there's some hiccups here and there, but there's never been a bad movie. And it's rare, especially when it's a horror franchise, to not have a bad movie, because eventually in a horror franchise you're going to have like a few hiccups here and there and a bad movie. But that first Scream movie, holy shit. We talked about it a lot on this podcast channel, so there's no point in, praising it a lot. Well, we're going to praise it in a little bit. But for right now, I have two friends, Ty, and then my second friend, that's a content creator on TikTok, Isa Introvert. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry. We're going to show what Scream means to them and what it means to the horror franchise, or what it means to the horror genre, my bad. And 3, 2, 1.
What's up, Vicente? What's up, Izzy? What does Scream mean to me and the horror genre? I think Scream is the most influential horror movie of all time. I don't think there's much debate about that. Just take a look at films like I Know What You Did Last Summer or Urban Legend, maybe Fear Street Part 1. I could be wrong about that, but that's not there nor there. I think Scream is a gateway horror film. If you can watch Scream, it can open your eyes to other slashers, to other subgenres of horror. I think Scream is just a very, very important horror movie. It was one of the first horror movies I had ever seen, and man, and still trust issues in my heart. I love Scream. I love Wes Craven. And without him, who knows what the state of horror could be right now. It's such a great film.
So when I saw Scream 1996 for the very first time, it motivated me to get back into all of the slasher movies that were referenced. Well, most of them, at least. And I really appreciated all the slasher commentary in that movie. I felt that this movie was a wake-up call to all of the horror creators of the time. It was like, hey, we can do more in this genre. I don't think we would have as many horror creators or people working in horror as we do today.
Ty and Isa, I appreciate you guys sending in those videos. Me and Izzy love them both. And what Ty said, I agree. It's basically kind of a gateway into horror if you want to get to the horror genre itself. We'll talk about Isa in a bit, but let's talk about what Ty said. So, like I said, I do agree. It is a gateway, and it's very influential. Look at I Know What You Did Last Summer. And as far as Fear Street Part 1, yeah, it is very Scream inspired, as you can tell with the whole mass killer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree with Ty. It definitely is a gateway film. At least, especially for me, as someone who, I did watch horror films, but I really didn't get into horror until I met Vicente, and that was basically our gateway horror film.
Yeah, it was for her, and she loved, and now she loves slasher, because she was more of an elevated horror type of person, but now she loves slasher. And now Isa, what she said, I 100% fucking agree. And I always say it, and I will die on this hill. If it wasn't for Scream 1996, a lot of horror creators wouldn't have the movies that they have now. And hell, like the title and the thumbnail in the description, Scream 1996, the slasher that saved the horror genre. And you can debate me all you want, but it is a known fact. If Scream was never made at all, a lot of stuff just wouldn't exist, because horror was starting to become so stale. I mean, look at Halloween, the Curse of Michael Myers with Paul Rudd. It was just getting so stale. And New Nightmare was good, another Wes Craven movie, but it was just, people weren't taking horror so seriously until Scream came along. So Ty and Isa, I appreciate you guys so much. I love you both. And we're going to show Isa's TikTok page and her YouTube page right now. Please give her a follow on both. She's a dear friend of ours, and I'm so glad I met her on TikTok because I love her, a lot of her content. Keep up the good work, dude. All right. Now let's get into Scream. So, Izzy, what does the first Scream movie mean to you?
I mean, for the first Scream movie, for me, I feel like it is such a, like we already said, it's a gateway film, but, like, it's such a good entrance to horror in general and to slasher movies, because it's not so much focused on the horror. You still have your comedy moments. You still have your serious moments. And it's a really lovable film, even if you aren't a huge fan of horror.
And it's so meta. And that's what's so unique about the first Scream movie. Yes, in New Nightmare, it was Wes Craven's first attempt at being meta, with the real-life actors, from their nightmare characters just portraying themselves. But this one was something different. It was like they were us, like we were in the movie.
It was like they were portraying us as like high schoolers or just random people. It felt really realistic, and that's like one of my favorite parts about this franchise.
And Wes Craven, he does a good job with just blending the comedy and horror, and he picked a perfect cast. And I'm gonna say it right now, this is probably one of the best perfect casting and any horror movie. Just everyone blends in so good. And fun fact about the Ghostface mask is that originally they had different concept arts for the mask that looked too alien, too demonic, too monstrous, and it looked too goofy. And it wasn't until one day Wes Craven and his production team just stumbled across the house, and the Ghostface mask that we see now, Wes Craven saw it in a random house, and he's all like, I want that. I want you to track down who made that mask, and we can get licensing for it. And thankfully, the original creator for the Ghostface mask gave him permission to use it as long as they credit them. And honestly, the Ghostface mask itself is just so iconic. I couldn't see any other mask existing.
Yeah, neither could I. I can imagine, like, an original mask. Like, I think it's so awesome that they literally just used a costume in real life that people have seen before and made it into this huge franchise.
And like I said, as much as I love Halloween 1978, as much as that's my number one horror movie of all time, I'd be lying to say if Scream wasn't my gateway into horror. It was literally the first horror movie that I actually sat down and watched with. I mean, yeah, I got scared, but like actually sitting down and watching, just being so intrigued with the voice of Rogerljackson. He's a good Ghostface, which we'll talk about in our positives. And in nevecampbell, we're going to talk about it in our positives. Just everything about this movie works out so good. And so even people that aren't horror fans know what Scream is. Like my brother Alex and his wife Sarah, they told me and Izzy about how in the 90s Scream was big. And even my brother Alex like quotes this sometimes with the "I'll be right back," and it's just so awesome to see how much of an impact Scream has had, not only on the horror genre, but just pop culture in general, with a lot of movies just taking inspiration from it, whether or not it's just like a straight up inspiration or just like a little like glorified cameo.
Yeah, and just seeing it in pop culture just shows how influential this movie is and how much it can just blend into like any genre.
Yep, and if it wasn't for the first Scream movie, we wouldn't have a lot of horror movies that we know now.
Yep.
All right, I think we should start getting to our positives.
Okay.
All right, starting with the first positive, the opening scene. And I'm going to die on this hill too, but there's no debating it. The opening scene to Scream is the best opening to any horror movie in horror movie history. And the thing is that it can literally work as a short film. And what better way to open a film than killing off your biggest star, Drew Barrymore? It's so awesome to see her be all like she's being a little flirtatious with the voice of Ghostface on the other line. And then literally not even like a minute later to just being so fucking terrified, and just everything in that atmosphere just works so perfectly. We even get some callbacks to Halloween, Freddy Krueger, and just fun stuff like that.
Yeah, and you see how well her acting is, just how her shift changed just in the voice of the phone. And I agree. I don't think I've ever seen an opening scene that can ever beat that. And I don't think they're one that will be. Maybe, but never.
No. And fun fact is that how Drew Barrymore cried just like that. Wes Craven was telling her stories about animal abuse, and Drew Barrymore is a big avid fan. She loves animals, and so hearing those stories, like she was crying behind the scenes, but it looks so real. It's so genuine. And then, when Ghostface ultimately gets her, and then the parents come home, Izzy brings it up. She's all like, back then, that shit's scary. And because of the first Scream movie, is that caller ID became a thing because of it. And, like, it's just so sad because Casey Becker is literally right there to her parents where she can just throw the phone and get rescued. But no, like, it's what a way to open a movie just like that, by getting rid of your big star when she was literally like just promoted the hell out of this movie as if she was going to be the big lead.
Yeah, and just how brutal this opening scene was to this franchise is just crazy to me. I mean, she was hung on a tree by her intestines.
No, not by a rope, but you see her intestines falling out, and this is so nasty. And then her boyfriend, Stephen Orth, oh man! And if you manage to get the unrated cut, which is only available in European countries, I've seen an unrated cut of Scream. Holy crap, it's fucking brutal. It gets disgusting. Like, you can actually see their guts falling out in the opening scene.
Wow, that is crazy. I would not. I would want to see that.
Yeah, but it's going to be a lot just to get that.
Yeah.
All right, and now starting with our second positive, and I made sure it's okay with Izzy, the amazing and beautiful Neve Campbell. Now, Izzy knows how much of a crush I've had on Neve Campbell, and I'm always going to choose Izzy no matter what. I don't give a fuck. But Neve Campbell, besides like crush aside and everything, I would say she's the best final girl in horror movie history.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, we've watched some pretty good final girls, but I have never seen one that's top Sidney Prescott.
Just because like Sidney Prescott is just such a strong character from like being, when you see her how she evolves from the first Scream all the way to Scream 5, just her evolution's so amazing. But we're only talking about the first movie. But even in the first movie, she's still a badass. She can still defend herself.
Yeah, and like you think there's times in this movie where you think, oh, she's gonna turn into a damsel in distress. But she doesn't. She just stays a badass throughout this entire movie. Yeah, does she have feelings and like is scared? Sure, but she never like succumbs to her being scared and just pushes through.
Yeah, and that's just so badass. And funny enough, Drew Barrymore was going to be Sidney Prescott, but then Drew Barrymore said, no, how crazy would it be if you had me as the opening kill? That way this movie opens up saying we're not afraid to get rid of anyone. And Neve Campbell, I can't see anyone else as Sidney Prescott. I can't. Neve Campbell is just that iconic in that role. And for a while, she kind of hated it, but she opened up about it recently in an interview, and she said now she embraces being Sidney Prescott if it means that someone can look up to that character in a good, positive way. And honestly, she's the best. I love Neve Campbell, and I'll always love her as Sidney Prescott.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Starting off with our third positive, and we kind of already talked about the entire cast. Now, I'm going to leave out Rogerljackson, Matthew Lillard, and Jamiekennedy as their own positive, just because I feel like they deserve it, and what they bring to the franchise in total. No disrespect to the other actors, but that's just our opinion. But let's start off with David Arquette as Dewey Riley. Now, fun fact, David Arquette was almost Billy Loomis. Until, but he's just so goofy, the actor himself. And Wes Craven, he lost the role to Skeetulrich, but Wes Craven's like, nah, I got another role for you. Hence the role of Dewey Riley. And Dewey Riley, I would say he's probably at least the second most evolved character throughout this whole franchise. But he's a very fun character in the first movie.
Yeah, he's like the silly bigger brother.
Yeah, and I bet no one didn't know about him almost becoming Billy Loomis. That would have been cool. But yeah, just the way he acts as Dewey, I can't see him as Billy Loomis.
Neither can I. I feel like that'd be, I don't want to say that's impossible, but like, that's hard to imagine.
Yeah, and funny enough that I remember when Izzy first watched this, she thought that Dewey was going to be a killer. And I don't blame her because he is a little too goofy sometimes for words. All like, okay, dude, there's no way you're a killer. You obviously have some play going around. And, I thought he was a killer too. And I wouldn't have been surprised, but he's just a lovable goofball.
Exactly. You make me sound like the villain when you say that.
All right, and now we're moving on to Gale Weathers, played by Courtney Cox. And then another fun fact is that Courtney Cox wasn't going to be Gale Weathers because Wes Craven said that she's too nice. Ever since her role in Friends, she played the character Monica. I've never seen it, but people have told me that she's hella nice in that show. And so Wes Craven's like, you can't be Gale Weathers because Gale Weathers is a bitch. But holy crap, Gale Weathers is mean in this movie. Yeah. Like, she doesn't give a crap about your feelings. She's making fun of her cameraman's way. She's calling Dewey kind of a dumbass. She's telling Sidney that her mom was kind of a hoe. She got around. But Courtney Cox brings a lot to that role, and she does evolve throughout this franchise until the certain movie, which we'll talk about when we get there. But yeah, Izzy, how do you feel about Gale Weathers?
I mean, I don't like her character, but at the same time, I do like her character. Also, I can't imagine her as a nice character on a TV show.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. And, you know, I think one of my favorite scenes is where Sydney fucking punches Gail, and it's so hilarious.
Oh, yeah. The way that she takes the slap, oh my god.
Yeah, just straight out doing. It's a classic scene. And now we're going to talk about Tatum Riley, plays by the great Rose McGowan, and she's the sister of Dewey Riley. Now, I like Tatum in this movie. She's kind of like that, I would say, sex positive female image for this movie, to where, yeah, she's like, you know, a little too sex positive, but she's also a good character in herself, and I really wish you could have seen her evolve in a sequel, but unfortunately she dies in this movie.
Yeah, I really do like her character. She's like that really nice, supportive best friend for Sydney.
Oh, she's very fiery. Like, she's so nice, but she's fiery, and I like it. She kind of reminds me of your friend a little bit, Erica. She reminds me of Erica a little bit, yeah. But, you know, it sucks that Tatum had she was only in this movie. I couldn't imagine how she could have been in Scream 2 or Scream 3, but for what we see her in this movie, Rose McGowan played the hell out of Tatum Riley. Just everyone in general kind of bounces off each other just so well.
Yeah, I don't think any of the characters had bad chemistry. I think they all played together really well.
Yeah, and if you see, like, their behind the scenes, or even when they meet up at, like, conventions and stuff, they're all still very close. Like, Izzy knows that I love watching them together at conventions when it's Skeetulrich, Jamiekennedy, and Matthew Lillard just having a good time. It's just so cool, you know? Yeah, so, like I said, we're going to leave out some other actors for their own positive, so that's going to do it for our third positive. And now moving on to our fourth positive, Rogerljackson as the voice of Ghostface. Holy crap, his voice is fucking scary. In that opening scene, he sounds like a normal dude, and then all of a sudden, literally just straight serial killer.
Yeah, I feel like his voice was so perfect for this role, because he can sound like someone everyday character and then just go into this really scary horror mode, and it does the character so well.
And fun fact, he plays the main villain in a Powderpuff cartoon series. What's his Mojo Monkey or something like that?
Yeah, Mojo Jojo.
Mojo Jojo, yeah. I'm probably going to piss off someone that loves Powerpuff Girls. But yeah, that's a fun fact. He voices a lot of cartoon characters, surprisingly. And you wouldn't expect it because he's in this movie as the voice of the killer. And just his voice alone, if I were to hear his voice at night in the dark, oh, I'd be shitting myself. And it's funny because I guess, like, his agent told him, like, hey, Wes Craven kind of wants to use your voice for a movie, sending, like, an audio tape, and Wes Craven said that his voice legitimately scared the shit out of him, to where he's like, oh, dude, hell no.
Yeah, and I think one of the other crazy things, too, is that none of the actors met him.
Oh, yeah, to this day, well, I don't know about to this day, but during the filming of this movie, no one ever met him. So imagine how scary that is, to where, and like when he actually called them, that was real time calling, to where like that's actually them like talking real life on the phone. And it's just so creepy that, you know, yeah, they said that Rogerljackson was a nice dude and stuff whenever they saw him kind of behind like a camera or whatever, when he didn't physically see him. But even then, just imagine how scary it is, just, you know, talking to someone on the phone, you don't even know what they look like. I mean, they probably know what he looks like now because, you know, social media and everything. But I can only imagine how scary it was back then.
Exactly. When you don't have, like, a name to a face, it just makes it 100 times more scarier.
Yeah, damn, I'm surprised. I was actually going to say that until you said it. Yeah. Damn, that's just so cool. And now moving on to our fifth positive, and I'm very excited to talk about this one, Matthew Lillard as stumacher. Izzy knows how much I love Matthew Lillard. He's every 90s kid's childhood idol. He's Shaggy. He was in Kangaroo Jack. He's just he's a cool dude. He's going to be in Five Nights at Freddy's. But let's talk about him as stumacher. He brings such a fun energy to the character of stumacher, to where he's another goofball, like a dork. And then when he's revealed to be a killer, he just goes fucking batshit insane, and I love it.
Yeah, okay. I don't think I was expecting him to be one of the killers, just because how fun and lovable he was and chill. Because, like, I don't want to say he was a stoner character, but he was like that.
I can see him as like a stoner character, yeah.
And no, it's not because of Shaggy people. But his character was just so well, and the fact that he just turned on a dime into this killer was just great acting.
Yeah, honestly, you know, people say, is he dead in the first Scream movie? I'm going to be honest, I hope he comes back. I don't think he's dead. You know, if he comes back in Scream 7, I'll be fucking happy. But you know, I couldn't see anyone else as Stumacher. I just can't, because Matthew Lillard literally brings that character to life. You know, when fun fact, when Billy throws the phone at Stu, and Stu says, "You hit me with the phone, dick." That's literally that literally happened. Skeetulrich literally just chucked that phone and it hit Matthew Lillard, and that's Matthew Lillard literally in pain. And that's just a fun little fact I like telling people.
That would hurt so hard.
Hell yeah, you know how hard those house phones are.
Oh, especially they're like the brick phones back then.
Oh hell yeah. Moving now to our 6th positive, Jamiekennedy as Randy Meeks. I love this character. This character is literally every horror fan. And when Izzy first seen this movie too, she looked at me, when she saw Randy kind of rumble about his rules in horror movies, she looked at me and was like, "That's you. That's literally you."
That's what I was just about to say. I'm like, this character basically embodies you with how much horror knowledge you have. And it just, it's another reason why I love this character, because it reminds me of you. Yeah,
and Jamiekennedy, like I said, and fun fact, Breckenmeyer, he played Jonathan in the Garfield movies, and he was also in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare as one of the stoner characters. He was supposed to be Randy Meeks, but Wes Craven said, "No, I want Jamiekennedy." He had a good feeling, and Wes Craven made the right fucking call, because I literally cannot see anyone else as Jamiekennedy. His character of Randy, literally, like I said, he's every horror fan. He knows the rules. He knows the tropes. He knows everything there is about horror movies. He's that one friend that you wish you can just have.
Yeah, I think he has a great balance of, like, comedy but also serious, and he's just a really good friend to have.
And I'm not gonna lie, he was my first suspect the first time I seen this when I was 12.
Because of all of his information?
I mean, like, be honest, like, if you knew horror movies like that, someone's gonna think you're kind of a psycho. You thought he was a killer.
Yeah, that is true, but I mean, now looking back, I feel like he was the scapegoat for the whole thing.
He's just the love slave of Sidney Prescott, that's all he is, and he's still a fun character, and what happens to him in the sequels, we'll talk about it. It's a positive, but it's still gonna suck when I talk about it. But yeah, Jamiekennedy fucking rules as Randy Meeks, and I really wish we could have seen him in 5 or 6. You know, spoiler alert, if you know, you know. If you don't, well, you'll find out in our next video. Alright, now moving on to our 8th positive, the meta references and the rules. Now, we'll start off with the meta references. We're going to show a picture right now, and that picture, ladies and gentlemen, is Wes Craven dressed up as Freddy Krueger. And in the movie, he's playing the school janitor. Even Principal Hembury, played by Henry Winkler, calls him Fred. And this movie's just full of, like, horror movie references, even references to other stuff. And like I said, it's just so meta. And you kind of expect it, but like back then, it was just very unique when it happened, especially when Randy is talking about the rules. Rule number 1 for a horror movie: you can never have sex. Rule number 2, you can never smoke and drink. Number 3, never ever say, "I'll be right back," because we'll never be back. And I just love how this movie is literally just paying respect and homages to every horror movie ever made, especially the Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis.
And I mean, all these meta relations just make this, I think, opens this movie up to a much wider audience, and that's one of the things I love about this movie and just franchise in general. It's just because even if you don't understand the movie, you may get a little tidbit here and a little tidbit here, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that movie."
Yeah, and like we mentioned, like this, since this movie is a gateway to horror, it introduces other horror movies, and I just love it. And fun fact, an actress from The Exorcist, Linda Blair, is in this movie. So like we said, meta references up the ass.
Yep.
You know, and God, like, I literally just can't get enough when this movie mentions a lot of just other horror movies. How, like I said, we literally get a mention of the first Halloween movie, Freddy Krueger, and even Friday the 13th, the original one, when Casey Becker gets the question wrong on who's the killer. I mean, technically she was right when she said it was Jason Voorhees, but the first killer was Pamela Voorhees. And like we said, Scream is a love letter to horror itself while also saving the horror genre.
Yeah, it just shows how much horror there is and how much it is intertwined and interconnected.
Yep, and then the rules, I just love the rules, man, and it makes so much sense. Like, you can literally take those rules in any way shape, or form that you want. But it's true, because Randy was a virgin in this movie. He ended up living after getting shot by Billy. Spoiler alert, we're not there yet. And it's fun. I think adding the rules to a franchise like this makes it a lot more fun, especially as we get further along the sequels.
Yeah, and I love how you can literally apply these rules to almost any other slasher film or horror movie.
Oh my god, yeah, easily you can. Alright, and now doing it for our last positive, number 9, the killer reveal, the motivation, and the entire third act. Now, Izzy, did you think there was one killer or two killers? I don't think I ever asked you the first time you watched it.
So, I think throughout we were watching, you were hinting that there were two killers. But, I mean, when you watch any horror movie, you always assume it's one. I never opened up to the idea of two killers in, like, a regular horror movie until this movie.
Yeah, and this movie does a good job of having a lot of red herrings because, like I said, you think it could be Dewey because he's creepy. You think it could be Randy Meeks because he's kind of creepy, too. But then they play this idea that it's actually Sidney Prescott's dad, Neil Prescott, because it's the anniversary of his wife's death after she was brutally murdered, and another term I'm not going to say on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's disrespect. I don't like that word. And for a while, when I first seen this when I was young, I was thinking, shit, it could probably be the dad. Because you don't suspect Billy Loomis, because that's way too obvious that it's the boyfriend. And then when Billy shoots Randy, I'm just like, holy crap. Wait, how is it Billy if we seen him just get stabbed by Ghostface upstairs? And then they reveal that there was two killers. Mind-boggling as fuck.
Yeah, when they revealed that, I was like, oh shit, who's the second killer? And then we find out it's Stu. But it was such an eye-opening scene for me, and kind of opened to this whole new world. Like, okay, maybe it's not just one person. Now it can be two or three. Yep,
and now we're going to show a clip right now to where they're at the video store with Randy. And rewatching it so many times, that's such a dead giveaway to where, like, they're kind of cornering Randy at the video store at his job. I'm just like, damn, how the fuck they're not picking up the first time? Scream is one of the greatest whodunit murder mystery movies of all time, and it does a good job. And now let's talk about the motivation. Stumacher, peer pressure, as he stated in such a funny way. But Billy Loomis, at first, you kind of think that he's just doing it just because. Or maybe because Sidney never slept with them, which of course Sidney does end up sleeping with them.
Yeah.
But there's a real motivation, and it's kind of fucked up. So his motivation for wanting to kill Sidney and everyone else was because he found out that his dad was sleeping with Sidney's mom, and that caused Billy's mom to leave. And ever since then, he was responsible for murdering Sidney's mom a year before, him and Stu. And then he had the idea of, let's create our own horror movie by killing off all these people close to Sidney and then save her as the final girl, kill her, and then leave us as the final survivors. And that motivation is just fucking good. It's just classic, and I love it.
Yeah, just the fact how they've thought of this years ahead is just crazy to me. But it also just shows how smart Billy was throughout this whole thing and how good this motivation was.
And even Stu had no idea, like, that Billy's dad was sleeping with Sidney's mom, and that's what caused Billy's mom to leave. Because you see Stu go, what the fuck? Like, look how it's surprised. Even Sidney, and it's such a crazy revelation to know that Billy and Stu were responsible for killing Sidney's mom. And that because of that, it started this whole chain reaction in this franchise we got. But this entire third act is just fucking badass, to where Sidney finally kills Stu and Billy. Stu by smashing a TV on his head. I mean, or so we think, as Mindy Meeks says in Scream 6. We don't know. Or, her finally laying that final shot in Billy Loomis's head. Sidney Prescott was just a badass in this entire third act. It's just so good because then Sidney doesn't know who the killer is, and then she finds out, and then boom, 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 she's like trying to hide, trying to kill him, and then she finally succeeds, and we finally get Sidney, Randy, Dewey, Neil Prescott, and Gil riding off in the sunset. And that third act is as perfect as you can get for any slasher.
Yeah, and I think if this movie was just a standalone movie, I would be happy.
Oh my god, yeah, I tell people that if this and the original Halloween were just a one-off film, I'd be perfectly happy. Granted, I love the Scream franchise, as we keep saying. We love it, but this movie is pretty good if it was just a one-off movie. I'd be happy if it was just a one-and-done movie.
Yeah, and there was, for me, I don't think there was any part in the third act that was boring for me.
Hell no, it just kept going and going.
Even the parts with Dewey and Gale, those were kind of down moments, but I mean, I think it was still interesting because it progressed their stories as well.
Oh yeah, and then eventually in real life, David Arquette and Courtney Cox end up getting married and have a kid, and they're still good friends to this day.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for our positives. Now, we do have, I wouldn't say negative, but kind of a nitpick, but it's just my personal nitpick, and that's the lack of a body count, because honestly, like, you only get Drew Barrymore's character, Casey Becker, Stephen Orth, Principal Hembry, and Tatum Riley, and then Billy Loomis and Stumacher. Oh, and Gail's cameraman, let's not forget him. That's easily forgettable. So, like, yeah, it's kind of like, not like a big body count, but it's not exactly a small one either, and I kind of wish there was, like, maybe one or two more deaths. But Izzy kind of brought up a good point when we rewatched it, saying that every death in this movie kind of played an important role. Whether, like, Principal Hembry's death played important because it was a distraction to get the other partygoers out of the house, and Kenny's, Gail's cameraman's death, you know, like, that's kind of a distraction. So everything was unique in its own way. It played a pivotal role. But just me personally, I kind of wish it did have a bigger body count.
I mean, if it had a bigger body count, who would you have killed? That's my question.
Yeah, you see, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want Randy to die, or just yet, you know, or Dewey, or, you don't know, fucking kill Dewey. I don't care.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about Gale?
Oh, knowing how Gail is now in Scream 6, dude, you might as well just kill her off in this one. Yeah. You know, yeah, you should just kill Gail in this one. Spoiler alert, people. I'm sorry, but Gail pisses me off in Scream 6. You're just going to have to wait and find out when we revisit that movie.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for our Scream 1996 review, the slasher that saved the horror genre. It has the best opening to any horror movie in horror movie history, one of the best third acts, the best final girl, and just a perfect cast. And I love this movie, and I'm just saying it from the bottom of my heart. As much as I love Halloween 1978, Scream, and then Wes Craven, may your soul rest in peace, to Jamiekennedy, to Neve Campbell, to Skeetulrich, Matthew Lillard. You guys made a horror movie that I just love and adore so much. And just because of you, this movie literally was a gateway for me to get into horror and just love it. And I honestly can't thank you guys enough.
Yeah, thank you guys for just being in this movie and playing your characters the way you did. Has literally saved the horror genre and has become one of my favorite horror movies, and I will always cherish and love until the day I die.
Like, it's such a big horror franchise and very popular in pop culture. What started out as like this fun little horror movie ends up becoming a giant, and we love it.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it, and next week is going to be Scream 2. I'm very excited to talk about that one, but until then, be good people, take care of each other, take care of yourself, and we'll catch you next episode. Peace out, everyone.
Bye, guys.